So hi, everybody. Thank you for listening in on your Thursday morning or whenever you are listening to this podcast episode. I want to start by talking about a trip that I took in May of 2025 to the Reimagining Dementia Village in Amsterdam, or right outside of Amsterdam, and where I had the wonderful opportunity to join a group of elder law attorneys from across this country make the trip to Amsterdam to see some wonderful cultural things, but also to spend 2 days really learning about elder care in Amsterdam and how they do it, how it's different here in the U.S. It was such an eye-opening experience, and we actually learned so much that we spent 2 episodes previously talking about it. If you haven't listened to those episodes, don't cut here, but afterwards, head on over to those episodes to hear about all of the great things that we learned. But I'm super excited to be here. So for those of you that have joined us before, you know that my name is Cortney, and I'm here with my mom, Julie.
Hey, everybody.
And we're here for the Hey Woman podcast, really dedicated to my Nan, my mom's mom, who passed away in December of 2024. And we're here to talk about real conversations on caregiving, on grief, and kind of open up those conversations to let you know that if you're caregiving or if you're going through your own grief journey, you're not alone, that other people are going through that too. And so I'm going to turn it over to my mom, who is an elder law attorney, to introduce our very special guest today. So, you know, we've had guests in the past. We had my sister to talk about her wedding. We've had Don Quante, who's a financial advisor. Not that we're more excited for this guest than Don. I don't want Don to get that.
No, we wouldn't want Don to feel that way, no.
But we are very excited that this guest is here today. So, Mom, if you want to take it away.
Yes, I'm really excited to be here today with Eloy. Really going to Amsterdam was a trip of my lifetime. It was something that I always wanted to do. Got together a group of attorneys and, you know, went there and was really more blown away than I ever thought I would have been. You know, people who really needed complicated care, living their lives, not stuck in an institution, but really living their lives. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Eloy and have you talk about yourself a little bit, and then we'll talk about the journey and what got you there.
Thank you, Judy and Courtney, for this nice introduction and hearing that I have to watch or listen to 2 other podcasts as well. I'm curious immediately.
Eloy, you should listen to every episode.
Sorry. That's true as well. Sorry, I apologize. Yes, so I am Eloy van Hal, and I work for a long time already at a not-for-profit care group in the Netherlands. And I wanted to work there because of the different view on what is good care and support for people living with dementia. When I changed positions in the Netherlands, I worked in another sort of institution. Many people said, what are you going to do with those crazy people? And they didn't mean the residents who were living there, but the management. Because that management, and that's, to be honest, they already started with a different vision on life, a normal life for people living with advanced dementia, and I really liked to be part of that. And now I talk 23 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I became the manager of a very awful, traditional, institutional building. But within that building, we, the team, and myself, I continued with that, started already to work on that vision to make lives for people living with dementia and high complex care needs, I would say skilled nursing care.
And I just want to interrupt here because that was one of the things that really stuck with me when I saw the picture of the old building. Uh-huh. And I thought about a place I had worked very early in my career, called Dolphin Manor, which was what we would call a county nursing home in the U.S. And it just, I mean, that visual was just really impactful. And I want shocking, yeah. And I want all of our listeners to know. I mean, we're really talking about a skilled nursing facility, looking very institutional, and that's where you were working at the time.
Long wards, 33 people at a ward. Mm-hmm. And that's why we saw this is not a nice place to live. And so it's maybe a good place to get care. I don't know. I don't think so either. But and that's important to realize for all listeners. If you work in the care business, it's not the physical space. We will talk maybe a little bit about the physical space, but it's not the physical space. It's about how you look at people living with dementia in a different way as people and not as patients. So that's what I really liked. And so I started there, managed the old structure while we immediately started to think about the next step. Because we learned already in the old structure that we can do many things so different than everybody does, and still does today or did at that time. And so we already discussed we need a normal neighborhood, a normal Dutch neighborhood to live in. And so I started to develop that with my colleagues and the team. Of course, it's always teamwork, to work on that and how to develop it, how to design it, but also how to implement the philosophy, how you look at people with dementia. And that's the impactful part also when you walk through, that's what you experience, I think, when you walk through the neighborhood. It's officially licensed as skilled nursing facility, but you walk through a neighborhood, you meet people living with advanced dementia on the street, you see how they socialize, how they just meet each other, have fun, and not everybody's happy, by the way, but they walk around, they can make their own choices, and most people didn't know that people who need this type of complex care and support can still do that. If you change the way we look at them, we providers, we people, we also people that care for their loved one at home, you must realize that your loved one or the patient, the resident in a facility is still a person with a lot of abilities. And that's what we do, we must try to step away from the disability and look at the abilities. And that's and if you go far, because we are thinking about the risks and what might happen, and that's why we try to care in the best way, but then we take away often life and possibilities and autonomy. And so that's what you can experience, and you have to experience it. That's why it's very good that you came.
Yeah.
You have to experience it. It's difficult to explain it.
It's
via words and pictures and so.
It certainly is. Like when I went, I just assumed that those people weren't as sick as what would be in a skilled nursing home in the U.S. And what I saw was that wasn't true. What I saw was they were just as sick. They were complicated care cases. They were advanced dementia, but you were highlighting their abilities and allowing people to do what they could and have choices. And I think that's, I think in some ways that's kind of twofold. One, I think, and again, this is something that you or Iris said when we were there, but kind of has stuck with me, which is, we bring everything to people who have dementia. So they're in an institution or even at somebody's home. Like if people are listening and they're caring for their loved one, we serve them, we have them, we serve them their food.
We take over almost their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't do that.
Only when it's really necessary, but in many cases, people with dementia can do so much more if we allow them to do that.
Yeah, it's just amazing when you see that in play, that you're highlighting their abilities, but also I think we're also reducing their frustration because they're given choice.
That's what you experience when you walk around. A lot of frustration is caused by the environment or by our behavior. Also for the people living at home and the spouse. Try to zoom out and realize how you sort of be the negative trigger, although you try to do the best. Keeping people inside, for example, is for many people a negative trigger. People want to go outside, at least Dutch people, and want to walk and want to are curious what's behind that locked door. So unlock the door and see what happens, that kind of things. So to finish, I started as a manager of the old structure. We developed the Hogewijk, known as the Dementia Village, the first dementia village in the world. And I managed the Hogewijk for many, many years. But the worldwide interest in the concept and in our thinking became that much that we started with a separate advisory department. So I changed positions again, and I'm now a full-time advisor for 10 years already, helping people to understand how you can improve care. So do keynotes, help also to develop providers or investors to make better places where people can live, and also try to influence all stakeholders, including family, but also regulators, and so to change the way how they look at people with dementia, and allow people with dementia just to be a person and let them live and support. And that's, of course, often challenging because we're living in a risk-averse society where we think it's safer to keep people inside while, and that's what you already mentioned, that could be the negative trigger where, so the behavior or how people just live becomes worse.
And I know for many of our listeners, you may say, well, it must be warmer over there in the Netherlands than maybe
warmer?
Yeah.
Warmer? We are here in Phoenix.
That's true. We are in Phoenix right now.
It's too warm maybe here.
Yeah.
No.
But certainly, that means that sometimes people are outside when it's cold or when it's snowing, or
Yes, that's
and
life.
that's okay. Yeah.
No, that's okay. That's life. That's what many people want. Dutch people, but I'm sure most people in the world. Mm-hmm. And if it's not snowing that much anymore due to the climate change, it's interesting to walk outside again when it's snowing. And I always tell the first 2 winters when we just opened, we were convinced that we had a good model and offering so much freedom and space outside to walk around in different gardens and streets and on the boulevard. With the first snow, it was exciting and also a little bit scary. What will happen? Mm-hmm. And so we made pathways and people were walking outside. Within half an hour, people with advanced dementia, mobility issues, walked outside. They wanted to experience the fresh snow. And so I was a little bit scared, to be honest, but after observing this, wow, this is why we did this. Yeah. And even some residents were helping us with snow removal. So it became very interesting to see how if you just allow people with advanced dementia, complex care needs, mobility issues to be themselves and support them and look in a different way to the risks of normal daily life, then people can do so much more and experience a better life, but also are less stressed, less agitated, because a lot of that agitation we normally see with people with dementia is caused not by the dementia, but by us and the environment. And that's really the biggest effect you can experience when you walk through the Hogewijk.
And one of the things I learned early in my career, and I thank my Uncle Mike Greavy for this, but I would do consulting work with him. He was a psychologist, a geriatric psychologist, and he was employed by some nursing homes to come in and look at people and who had like problem behaviors and fix them. Like, that was really like, this person's a pain, or, this person's, having these behaviors. And, one of the things that he approached that with was, is this really a problem with this person, or is it a systems problem? Are we asking this person to make a change or to give up something that's really maybe not necessary? I mean, there are some safety issues, but and so time after time, I would go out with him on a Thursday, and we would hear from everybody in the nursing staff and at the facility, like what a problem this person was, how agitated they were. And I think that that's important for all of our listeners to hear. I mean, obviously we're talking about, Eloy, this amazing, bold vision that you had to have this dementia village, which very much said, we can do this better. And you changed the physical space to do that. But
So not only the physical space, but also how we support individuals.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How we allow people living with dementia when they are living in a facility, a skilled nursing home, to make a cup of tea, something they did just before they moved in as well, or help with the meal preparation. It's allowing people, trusting people with dementia, that they can still do so much because they did it at home as well, but they have or they need the support. So that's the mindset. It's the physical space, but it's also how we as caregivers, family members, really trust or believe that people with dementia can do so much more.
I think that's interesting too. You know, when I think about Nan and her agitation, so we've talked about my grandmother's idiosyncrasies, I think, for lack of a better term, on the podcast before. But, you know, it's funny, she liked to be outside. And so that seems to be something that's common with your residents, with people that we care for. And, you know, it wasn't summer until she had this green like patio set. And it wasn't summer until she got this green patio set out. And my dad and my brother hated bringing it out because it's like this glass top, and she would stand out there with her walker and she would make sure that they were diligently doing it exactly the way that she wanted to do it. And then you had to clean it. And it's this whole process that she would have. And
you would think bringing out a table is like, you know,
not that big of a deal. But I mean, it took 45 minutes probably to do it the way that she wanted it done. But there was no risk in her standing there with her walker. We weren't asking her to pick up the table, but then she'd come out with her her rag, because none of us cleaned it right. Maybe DJ did, but I never did. And so she would wipe it down, and, you know, they're really, even if she only sat on it once, it was worth bringing it outside so that she could see it. And there were places that we could kind of insert normalcy into what she was doing in a safe space. Because I think what you said earlier, which is, you know, in the first snow, like, you were nervous. I think for anybody listening, like, it's okay to be nervous when you start injecting some risk into the caregiving. I think that's a normal part of what we're doing, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. And I think caregiving is hard because we're going through so many other emotions that it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could handle one more. But I think, you know, thinking about calculated risks or thinking about places where you can really put in normalcy into what they're doing and giving them a choice. Just the fact that she could go sit outside, even if she didn't, was a really important thing for her.
Gives her comfort. This is her normal rhythm. This is important for her. Those details matter for her a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I learned when I was there is you talk about the lifestyles and how people are matched, and they live with people who, you know, maybe like the same food, the same music, you know, had the same upbringing. And for my mom, she grew up on a farm. And so being outside was really important to her. And you talk about supervising the landscaping, but like, she really liked that, like, and being able to be part of that, even if she couldn't get down and be in the soil, but being part of that was really important. And I remember, so she lives at a facility that I owned, and she was kind of the mayor of it sometimes. She definitely. But one of the things she... Oh, she's funny. But one of the things she loved doing, our cook one time, wonderful woman named Mel, would take her out and just plant some flowers around this sign. And that made my mom so happy. And it made my mom happy for two reasons. One, it made it look nicer, and the fact that I hadn't gotten to it or somebody hadn't gotten to it. How dare our sign have like debris below it, like dead things. But then also like really, and she did get down on her, you know, on her bottom, and she was there and she had her hands in the ground, and it may have only been for, you know, 5 minutes while they planted just like 5 little plants around this, but she went on about that for days. And I think thinking about your lifestyles, that was so important to my mom because that was the way she grew up. That's what she did. So the outside, the ground, the soil, you know, I was, you know, grew up, you know, you have to make hay when the sun's shining. Like, you know, we cut hay, we did stuff like that. It was just so much a part of who she was. And losing that was a huge loss.
And it's what we are talking about is very interesting and important to realize that we talk about normal human daily life things. And you mentioned behaviors before, that people with dementia show behaviors. maybe they show sort of expressions. They cannot express themselves correctly or not make clear what they want. But we put people in environments, in sort of hospital-like environments, where you cannot be yourself and do these little, very important, normal daily life things that make your life important or helps you to come through or live through the day. And so that's very important to realize. And if you visit often memory support units or memory units, or only the word unit already.
Yeah.
So
unit, ward, all horrible names.
So with all the best intentions, it's not about life, but it's about keeping people inside a specific room, and the focus is mainly on their care needs and not the possibility to go outside or to look outside even because you're sort of kept inside. And those simple things are, for many people, very important to look outside, have daylight, just do your own thing. What we call simple pleasure of life.
Right. Well, and another simple pleasure that really Dementia Village is built on is even making meals. And I know you talk about the fact that, they're allowed to have a knife.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and just how impactful that is.
Yeah, so you refer to lifestyles. It's somehow weird that in an institution, sort of everybody gets the same meal, while you maybe don't like it, and the same music for everybody. So it's important also in the Hoogweg concept that if you move in and you live in a small group home, we didn't mention, but it's a small group home, 7 people, that you're matched according to your personal preferences and music, meals, the way you live, the way you communicate, what you want to watch, read. So it's easier to become friends, and there's less agitation among the people that live together. And that meal preparation is a very important part of a normal daily life structure. So it's important that when people want to help, that they can. So in every house, the team members, the staff, cooks meals. Residents cannot cook a whole meal, cannot manage the whole household, but many can still and want to help and participate in the meal preparation. And not only help the physical activity, but the smell can be important, or just the talk and the chat. So that meal preparation, although not all residents help and are part of that, it's an important element to create a normal rhythm, a normal feeling, a normal smell in the place where you live as a person with dementia. And it's interesting, when I support my mom, and my mom is living with dementia as well, cooking was one of the most important things of her day, but she can't do it herself anymore. So if I do the groceries and I cook, my mom always, and that's typical Dutch, peel the potatoes, clean the vegetables. That's what she still can do, and that's what she also wants to do. Otherwise, she feels served, and that's not what she likes. She wants to stay in control. So that's I see it happening at my mom's place as well.
Yeah, it's
how important that is, the normal daily life activity. That gives comfort.
Well, and that was one of the things when Nan first moved into the village that was so important to her was the food. And it's not only what they're eating, but how they're eating it. So they ate on a different schedule. In a lot of facilities, I think in the U.S., they feed the bigger meal at lunch and a smaller meal at dinner time. Yeah. And that's not how she preferred to do things.
Also, that's also a very good institutional example.
Yes.
Because it's easier for the institution, you change or you dictate the lives, the rhythm of the lives of all your residents or patients. Yeah.
Now, she made her own, I would say, lemonade with lemons there. She befriended the head of the kitchen staff. I think
she certainly did.
She got what she wanted, I would say. She was able to navigate the system in a very positive way. Yes.
She was, yeah. And I just think for people who are listening, this isn't just about what's happening in the Netherlands, and certainly this paradigm being shared throughout the world in the U.S., but Also, what we want you to get out of it is things that you can take away from it right now. So thinking about music, music is so important to some people. And, are we putting the music out that is what they would like, or is it what the caregiver would like? And so, I know when my father-in-law had dementia, he had multi-infarct dementia, one of the things that we did was we played music when he would get a little agitated. And music is, there's music therapy. So thinking about how can music, be helpful. I know when my mom was passing away, we were in hospice that last week, I very much, figured out how to put her music on, and that she really loved. But music, have your loved one help as they can. Don't have them sit and watch TV while you make the whole meal. Bring them out with you. Figure out what part of that meal preparation they can participate in, and have them participate in it. And I think for some of this, too, it goes back to sometimes people sleep all day and then they're up all night. And that makes it even harder for the caregiver. One of the things we did with my father-in-law is we would have him go for walks. When the grandkids would come and sit with their grandfather, one of the things we said was take him for a walk. He liked, he worked outside too, and he liked to be outside. So I think there's real things that people can do as caregivers. And part of this, I think, I could look at and say it's common sense, but I would say the Dementia Village is proof that this really works and has an impact on people and their ability to enter into life and live life the fullest until the end.
Yeah, and there are many comparisons to make. Also, if you are caring for somebody at home, it's important to realize that person is changing. So some of the things are changing. What a person did in the past, she or he doesn't do now anymore. So be alert, zoom out, realize that it's changing and what is still working well. Music, for example, as you mentioned, or certain activities, but certain activities will not be possible anymore. But try, but zoom out and sort of accept. It's sort of a part of grief already that a person, your loved one, is changing.
Yeah, that's such an important point.
Yeah. It's important to realize that people with dementia can do so much more if we are not too afraid that something happens. Because somehow if you have a diagnosis, we immediately are afraid that something will happen. Well, just before the diagnosis, something could happen as well. So that doesn't change. Why do we take away the knives when you have a diagnosis? That doesn't mean that just before you had the diagnosis, it was already so dangerous, or you could still do certain things. So the diagnosis is not changing that. It's still a person. And that's what we have to realize constantly.
And I think you have to balance. When you take away the knife, what else are you taking away?
You take away life. I always say you take away life.
Yeah.
You take away your skills, what you still can do, help with the cooking, preparing dinner, the conversation. You take away so much more than only the knife.
Yeah.
And you're encouraged to sit down and take over, and then sitting on your butt. And after 3 days, they are only sitting on their butt. And then you complain, Mama's doing nothing anymore. But you put her in the chair and not allowed her to just face the risks of normal daily life.
And I think what's so important too here that we talk about is, we talk about music, we talk about being outside, but what's important is we always tie it back to the person that they like to do these things. So if you are caring for somebody and they don't like to cook, don't now bring them out into the kitchen because you listened to us and we said, oh, well, they should help cook and that will help, I think it's, I think about my grandfather who had a diagnosis of dementia. He loved to play cards. Mm-hmm. And so some of that was we changed some of the games that we played. But even as his dementia progressed quite significantly, he was still very good at playing what I would consider some relatively complex card games, and he still had fun. But my nan who didn't have dementia, she never enjoyed playing cards. And so that's not something that
Solitaire.
Well,
Just
by
not cards
herself.
with other, just not cards with other people. But yeah.
It wasn't as social for her. And so that's not something she would have enjoyed. And so the caregiving for these two people is so different. My grandfather did cook, but that wasn't something that he necessarily enjoyed doing later in life. Like my gram really did that. He had opinions about it, but, don't cook with onions. But as long as there was no onions in it, he was pretty good to go.
Make sure you put the salt in the pumpkin pie.
Yes.
That was a bad Thanksgiving.
Make sure that you really know the individual.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everything, that's important. And zoom out, but also realize that some things will go in a different way. My mom was going for a walk every day, but now I can not get her out of her house, hardly, because other things make her worried that what might happen when I walk outside, or she's insecure more. And that takes over the drive to walk outside. So it's observing, trying out, and
But also being
patient.
respectful for her, to her, on her journey, and letting her be that guide and that decision maker.
Then she has control over what's happening to her, and it's not you taking something from her. She's decided that this is something that she no longer wants to do, and we all reserve the right to change our mind.
Yeah, and I want to go back, Court, to the cards that you talked about, because I think it's really important, and I think it ties into this conversation. Don't stop playing the game just because they may not be perfect at it.
It's also good for your brain.
It is.
Yeah.
It's keep your brain running. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some people are like, oh, they can't quite play it perfectly. Some of the younger grandkids, like they loved that like Pap wasn't quite as good, but Pap didn't care. Like he didn't care. And so why stop playing it? Now my mother-in-law, who is quite, she really enjoys playing cards, and she's quite competitive. She was just at our house, and I like to say her and I beat my husband, her son, and he didn't take that well.
It's always a good day for Grammy, though.
It is always a good day for Grammy, but like she didn't particularly like to play cards with her husband when he couldn't play. And, we have to understand and give some grace to the fact that it was hard for her to see that. Here's this big man who was, fuller than life, and they spent a lot of time playing cards, and it was a lot of fun. But that doesn't mean that the grandkids can't go do it. That doesn't mean that like somebody else who has a different life experience and a different shared paths together can't keep that on.
Exactly. Well, sometimes he beat her, and he didn't play perfectly, and that really didn't go over.
Yeah, especially when he wasn't playing perfectly,
Right.
they still beat her. Yeah, that was a very competitive woman.
Yeah.
I love that about her, but...
So, I just want to have the listeners kind of like take a moment before we kind of wrap this up and think about, we talk about all of these things, and they're things that like you, Eloy, have amassed over, years of kind of moving from a more traditional, nursing home, skilled nursing home center into, the Reykjavik. And so, I want the caregivers to stop and think like, you can affect change right now with the person that you're caring for, but you don't have to affect 8 different kinds of change. If you stopped and thought about, one thing that could make the caregiving journey better right now, or one place that you can inject risk, we're asking you to take just like a small baby step forward. And change isn't built overnight. Like it's more incremental. And so, we've had really, a couple months to sit and think about after seeing the Reykjavik and different things like that to really let this sink in. And so I don't want this to feel like something the caregivers have to implement all at once, but just kind of like taking one step forward is still a step in the right direction. And so if they, need any help or anything like that, I always direct people to the planningandprotecting.com website. We have phenomenal resources that we're uploading. We're super excited for our caregiver toolkit, which takes things that we've learned through our journey and in a PDF that they can read and they can review, and it's kind of step by step. It also will connect you with attorneys, and it also will connect you with us. If you have questions, concerns, we're starting to put different sponsorships and things up there. So it's just a great resource for our listeners. But I don't know if you have any last thoughts on, kind of your journey for our listeners before we sign off.
Family caregiver, you
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Realize, I think, and that your loved one is a human. They don't change or do a lot of things and express their things in a different way because they want to agitate you as caregiver. Try to zoom out, constantly realize they are doing everything with the best intentions. They are humans, but their brain is not functioning completely well. So learn to accept that and find solutions to give more comfort or take away the agitation. And often the agitation can be you as a caregiver as well. So that's important to realize. So just it's human, people are changing, and how can you support the change and give comfort?
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. And if anybody needs any help or resources, we send you to planningandprotecting.com. Also, feel free to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at the Hey Woman Podcast, where we're always uploading different resources for our caregivers.
And thank you, Eloy, for all you've done to transform dementia care.
You're welcome. And thank you for this invitation. This is part of my mission to improve the world of the lives of people living with dementia in the world a little bit. And so I hope it works. Every step is one step forward.